Can you hear me, Jen?
I can.
Oh, okay, good. Wow. My video is not working for some reason.
Mine never works, so I'm going to go in with my phone.
Every time I don't know what's happening. Select another video camera and settings. I don't know what that means. How do I make you host? Making you co-host. There you go.
Yay. Okay. Are you gonna
You're sideways.
no. Hold on. There we go. Oh, right. Are you gonna drive the slides or do you want me to do that?
Maybe you should do that since you are in the driver's seat.
Okay. I'm gonna let Dana in.
Is she here?
Yep.
Oh, there she is. Hi, Dana.
Oh.
Oh, you're muted. Oh, no, I can't. There you go. Hey, Jennifer, can you make Dana a co-host? Because she has to do her slide part.
For sure. I can't hear her though.
You can't hear me?
Oh, now I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, it shows that I have screen share capabilities. So when we get to that part of the agenda, I'll just, maybe one of you will give me the thumbs up and I'll go ahead and share.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty informal because I think we're only expecting a few people. So A, it might go faster and we might get done early, which I'm always a fan of. And B, we can keep it really informal and like help people really think about, well, what problem are you trying to solve? And is the app really the right thing?
Yeah.
I really appreciate you joining us.
I'm happy to. You know, I've been thinking about and talking about technology internally for 2 years. And so I'm finally happy that I can share it with other people. Like, it gives it a bigger purpose, you know.
Yeah, it's nice. I was the first director of technology at Youth Guidance, along with like evaluation and research. And it was strange. I mean, that was also like early 2000s. So people were like,
what's technology?
Like, electronic. So we
you mean smartphones?
Right. Right. No, we didn't even have those yet.
Mm-hmm.
So way older.
Youth Guidance was ahead. I mean, in a lot of ways, Youth Guidance has been ahead of its time. But Youth Guidance was ahead of its time to have a director of technology at that point. I mean, most nonprofits don't even have that now. It's like lumped in with operations or HR or whoever else can handle to add that to their task list.
Right. Let's be clear. I was massively unqualified. I was there and they could add it to my title and I figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
What were you before that?
I think that's a lot of how nonprofits are doing it, is kind of bootstrapping technology.
Oh, Carrie, I was the director for research and evaluation.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then when we had the opportunity to convert to an electronic client record in like 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
They needed someone to run that.
Yeah.
So then they added that in.
Yeah. When I joined Pi, Tanya wanted to make my title be something like Director of Technology. And I was like, whoa, I don't think that's what I'm going to be doing. I sure hope not.
Yeah, well,
It's part of what I do.
I learned
but-
so much, and it was really about databases, which I, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it was about databases and implementing, effective implementation of new practices in an organization, and both those things I understood. So, but yeah, like figuring out the servers, I cried a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't understand any of that stuff.
Hi, Clint. You are muted. I don't know if you're really Clint, because I can't see you.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're really Clint.
I'm really Clint.
Hi, Clint.
I'm not really in San Francisco, but I'm really me.
Well, I'll take half real. I understand the urge to see something different behind you.
Yes, my partially finished basement is not the best work setting, but that's where I'm relegated right now. So we're going to do San Francisco instead.
I love it. Thank you.
Mhm.
And can you remind me which organization you're with, please?
I'm with the Chicago Children's Advocacy Center.
Okay.
Are you Kay Irving? No.
No, that's Katie.
Oh,
Is
okay.
Katie coming as well, or are you here for Katie?
I think she should be here. I didn't hear otherwise.
We are waiting for Katie, and we're waiting for one other person from one other organization, just so you know. That's why you've heard us chatting about how old I am. And it's going to be a small meeting, so it can be really informal. I don't think you were with us in our last discussion around apps. So I want you to meet Dana Emanuel from New Moms.
Hi there.
Dana is about 2 years into probably one of the most robust app development projects I've ever seen in a nonprofit or not. So she's going to give us the Bentley version, and then we're going to talk about if you had an app, what problem would you be trying to solve with it? Let's think through those laying the groundwork things too. So our goal today is really to figure out how to help you guys move forward. And so we'll ask you questions. Dana's here to help you think through some things. I'm just here to facilitate and tell war stories.
There's always plenty of those with any sort of IT project. So
So much.
we actually have the state of Illinois was going to move, at least all the CACs were going to move to like a statewide database, and we actually delayed our migration to that because through the whole process of discovery and trying to configure everything, we realized our system is very different from everyone else's, and we were going to need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for customization, not to mention the migration portion of it, just to get it kind of matching what we're using right now. So we had to put the brakes on that. So it's my most recent IT or technology horror story.
Yeah, that sounds apropos for sure. Hi, Jen.
Hello.
How are you?
Morning.
Good.
And I think we'll wait one more minute and then we'll get started. Carrie Rosales from Pi is also here with us. Carrie, do you want to?
Yeah, you
Your
can't. see
camera's
me.
not working.
My camera's not working. I'm the big pie here.
But Carrie used to work for a database company, and so she's got many war stories of people who thought they were ready to go and they were not ready to go. So we're going to try to avoid that. Hi, Marla, and Marla's here too.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It looks like we have 2 people here who were not on the RSVP list. So they were still waiting for people on
Which
the
is
RSVP
great.
list. Oh, no, I don't mean that's bad. I'm just saying the people that are on the RSVP list aren't yet here. So I don't know if
Well,
you want to get
do you wanna-
started. It's 8:07.
why don't you ping them and we'll get started. Thanks. And Jen, you have met Dana before, correct? Okay. So obviously with the network, we're trying something new this year, which is sort of these consultative groups. I'm probably getting ahead of myself slide-wise. Yep, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And you know, we're focused on Medicaid advocacy and technology, and it felt like the best way to help organizations move forward with what you want to work on was sort of break into smaller groups as opposed to keep everything in the large groups. So this group is really today to serve your purposes, and you know, sort of help you ask questions and lay the groundwork and explore the idea of developing an app and figure out whether or not that's right for you. Dana obviously is going to share with us some more detail around their Cadillac version process. Oh no, Bentley. I'm calling hers the Bentley version. But we also want to sort of dig in on some groundwork questions for you and your organization. So that's sort of our purpose today. But I always like to start with a celebration. So I'm wondering, what are you most proud of accomplishing during a pandemic? And I didn't think about this question for myself, so I'm going to ask Dana if she wants to start.
Thing on the work side that I'm most proud of accomplishing during the pandemic is there's a lot actually. It's required a lot, and I think as an organization, I'm really proud of our organization for continuing to not just be responsive to the crisis, but also think about and move forward on some strategic longer term projects like the app, but others as well. So we didn't get stuck or mired in only crisis response, but can hold both the tension between immediate priority, urgent response, and continue to move forward on some bigger, longer term things that will come to fruition post-pandemic, because I think there is a time where this pandemic will end. And I'm most proud of my accomplishments with the team of moving some of those big projects forward, like putting in place the infrastructure for our Parent Advisory Council, which will launch next year. And I think that's the thing so far that I'm most proud of.
Cool. Clint, what are you most proud of accomplishing during a pandemic? It can be personal or professional.
Oh man, I'll stick with professional. I think I'm most proud of our organization's initial response. We were able to get everyone, VPN access, get everyone a Zoom account and a laptop computer before Illinois officially, had the stay-at-home orders. So I feel like we were definitely prepared to continue to service our clients and to continue just our operations, generally speaking. So I feel like I've talked to some folks, and I feel like some people are still trying to figure out how to work remotely 9 months later. So
that's a big deal. Jen, what about you?
I would say at the beginning, same with Clint and everyone else, just our response at the beginning of the pandemic, how we just all jumped in and figured out how we were going to get everything done and how we were going to support staff with technology from home and still serve our clients virtually. I would say right now, it is that we are really focused on the mental health of our staff, because we know that a lot of people are burnt out and having compassion fatigue and all kinds of other things. And so we're doing whatever we can to support our staff right now.
Great. Carrie?
Yeah, I think that for Pi, I'm a data analyst here. It's one of my jobs, and we've been analyzing a lot of data from organizations around the city who are struggling with the pandemic, and it's been really interesting and rewarding to get a broad understanding of what people are struggling with and where they need help, and then being able to help facilitate resources to those organizations through foundations and other places. So, you know, it feels like I've gotten a really cool landscape understanding of how people are dealing, and then just being able to help them is nice. As far as what I'm looking forward to in the new year, that's more personal. We are we're outfitting ourselves for more like mobile living. We like to camp and be outdoors, and so we're putting together a lot of stuff to like be able to do that and go camping more and just be outdoors more and be more mobile without kind of just being stuck here in our house. So we're getting there. So that'll be fun.
Marla.
I don't know. I feel like I'm not the most, like, I don't really think about things in terms of like what I would like to accomplish, or what I'd be most proud of. But I guess I would say that with the start of the pandemic and everything, I think it's exciting to see the shift to just technology in general, because obviously it's not something that I think is really a focus before the pandemic happened. So seeing just the branch of like people trying to utilize different platforms to really make some sort of outreach to communities to continue helping them has been super cool to see, and it's been interesting to be a part of like the conversations with different organizations that that we've been able to partner with recently. And I think that's it for me.
Thanks. I am proud that I've actually been cooking a ton, because I love to cook, but I just didn't do it. So, but now it's like we're having roasted gnocchi and roasted broccoli and a kale cashew pesto sauce for dinner on Wednesday. So that's been really fun. Anybody want to weigh in on what they're looking forward to, or we can keep moving?
Oh,
I'll do that ad hoc.
Whoops,
I know, you were so good.
The one.
No.
Sorry.
Well, and I realize that there's not enough people here for me to have to go around, so I can just open it up and be informal.
We're launching our app in Q3, and I'm excited about that.
That's very great.
Next fall.
That's a big deal. You've done so much work. Anybody else? Clint, I can't decide if you're going to talk or if I should switch the slide.
I don't want to jinx it, because I think I know what everyone is looking forward to, but I feel like if I say it, I'll jinx it.
Right,
So
well,
maybe
let's
I'll just leave
not
it
say it. So our purpose today is, as I said, like we want to organize this as a consultative support group, right? General enough to help everybody move forward, but really specific enough to be useful for each of you. So at the end, I'm going to ask you like what you thought about this format. We want to build an understanding of what each of your agency needs and interests might be in an app and help you deepen that understanding and explore the potential usefulness of an app to meet those needs. And I think a longer term question is like, can those needs align under one app? So maybe, or are there multiple organizations who could work together on an app? I think that's a question we want to keep on the table so that it doesn't just have to be one thing. So from each of your organizations, I'm curious, and Dana, you can also, if you want to talk about how you answered this question, what needs do you have that you think an app could help you meet? I know for one of the participants who isn't here yet, she said they really wanted to increase client engagement, but I'm curious if there are other needs that you're thinking about when you're thinking about developing an app or the usefulness of an app.
Something that helped us when we started with this question was first identifying from which audience. Like there are maybe multiple audiences that have pain points in your process. And so to get pretty precise on who those different audiences are can help you home in on the pain points. And sometimes those pain points are shared ones, and sometimes they're independent. That helped us kind of get started because we have a lot of needs as an organization. And so we said, okay, we're focused, we center on participants. So what are the pain points of participants' engagement with new moms? So we started with that as one audience, and then said, okay, the other, user of our product is our service product is our coaches. So we kind of narrowed it down with this question to what are the pain points for our particular audiences first, and then and I'll talk about this later, and then reframing those pain points as opportunities in the way that Jennifer, you shared, like increase client engagement rather than client engagement is an issue.
So Jen or Clint, are there specific either audiences that you're thinking about, or pain points, as Dana said, or just needs in general that you're like, well, we're thinking an app could help with this?
I think one of the more recent issues that's kind of just been exacerbated by the pandemic is kind of caretaker services and information. When we have a family come on site, it's usually like they're on site for a couple hours, they get their interview, they get a packet of information, and then they're on their way. So we still have, I'm just kind of reading through, like, I guess our low tech or our current tech solution to that is just the human interaction. We have some staff who are constantly reaching out to families just to check in and see if they're doing well, to see if they have any other needs. And it works to an extent. It's just very, very time consuming, and it's a lot of the times it's just reactive. It's usually a family calling us because they don't have information or they need help with paperwork or something like that. So that's one of the bigger pain points. And obviously now, when families can't just come on site to meet or to work with someone, that's been made the problem more obvious.
I think it's the same, and I'm really just learning because we're not at any stage of being ready to do something like this. So I think, but right now we know that engagement has been hard. A lot of our clients, our participants, just want to text, and that's not really a quality home visit as far as our funders go. So, or just our service model. So, just trying to figure out what this app could help us with. Would it help us with engagement? Would it offer more resources? I do like the idea of goal planning through the app, as well as we do a lot of evaluation. So maybe getting something onto an app where they could fill it out, through that, instead of us trying to send surveys back and forth.
Yeah. I think the data collection, this is me showing my colors, right? The data collection is a really powerful opportunity. I feel like, I just wonder if the rate of return would be higher than the responsiveness. So, but it sounds like for both of you, it really is about that period between after a client starts with your program, like what are ways to keep them engaged, invested, giving them, sort of the information they need at the time they need it, and having quality engagement, even if it's not in person. What are the outcomes that you would want to see as a result? Like, let's say magically, right, we come up with funding and we can develop an app in the next year. Like, once it's up and running, what are the outcomes that you would want to see?
I think in terms of the short-term outcomes, it would be nice just to have the family get what they need in a timely fashion, and to and kind of on our end, just free up some hours from some of our staff. But then, like, I guess a long-term outcome that we would like to see is just less, recidivism, because we do have cases where they're coming in for, support services or mental health services, and there's definitely some repeats that are coming through. So maybe if we can better assist the families the first time around, there's less of a chance that they have to come back or they have other issues in the future.
Makes sense.
I think just better communication and just one platform for communication, because right now I think we're just trying so many different avenues, phone calls and Zoom and texting and Remind. There's just so many things that we're using, and it's getting complicated.
We had that same problem, Jen. We have it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes with an opportunity because we can see what's the most sticky for our 2 user groups. Like what's most feasible and acceptable, and we can start with that. So that's how we kind of like are using this time of divergent technology to get through the pandemic, to help inform our future, product that we're going to use. Integration is key because we know people won't add one more thing.
Right.
One more platform on the coach side, one more data entry point, one more tool to use, and participants too, their lives are super busy and too many inputs, lower bandwidth. So that's exactly our same challenge.
Okay. Any questions that you have about needs or outcomes? Not yet, which is totally understandable. So Clint, you talked about the low tech ways, and Jen, it sounds like your low tech way is mostly in a pandemic, like texting. Well, I guess that's not terribly low tech, but it's lower tech than you would like. So Dana's going to go in a little bit deeper on some aspects of their process. And then we'll sort of return to questions about what your organizations need and what you're thinking about in terms of moving forward and how the network can be helpful after that. But I am going to pass it to Dana at this point.
Thank you. I will be talking about all 3 of those questions that you just posed as well. And because it's such a small group, I'm going to pause throughout so that we can take a deeper dive if you have questions about each of those sections kind of as I go through. Can I ask you, Jen, to remind me what organization you're from and what population of individuals you're working with? And Clint, I'll ask you the same, though I think I talked to your colleague Katie individually post our last conversation, but just so I have a sense and can tailor some of what I'm sharing.
I'm with Teen Parent Connection, and we serve young parents 12 to 22 with home visiting programs, parent support groups. We have a prevention program as well.
Okay. Super similar to what we do at New Mom in Chicago and near west suburbs. Great. Thank you. And Clint?
With the Chicago Children's Advocacy Center. So we're working with primarily sexually abused children, although we've been taking more cases of just physical abuse and risk of harm, trafficking, things of that nature. So we're kind of, we work closely with some of our government partners, state's attorney and Chicago Police Department, DCFS, to basically have the child and the family come in and just basically it's the one-stop shop in the investigation process, so they're not having to relive that traumatic experience, speaking to their principal or to a mentor, to their parents, and speaking to 12 different people about it. It's really, they just come to the center. It's usually like a 2 or 3 hour visit. And then from there, that's when we, we try and work with the family further if they want more assistance just with other services in the community or mental health services specifically. We have our own clinic. So
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
So Jen, it sounds like you were on the call last time. I'm sorry if my working memory through the pandemic, that is something I'm not proud of my accomplishment because I can't remember a single thing ever anymore. So I'm sorry that if I don't remember. And Clint, I don't think you were on. So I'll start my little presentation with just a sharing on my end of what New Moms is. So can you all see my big slide screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So New Moms, we partner with young moms under 24 years old in Chicago and the near west suburbs in a 2-generation coaching approach, addressing the goals of the mom and of the child's development in order to create the foundation for economic mobility and family well-being. And we do that through 3 core programs. Our housing program, which involves transitional and permanent supportive housing for young families. We have a family support program, which includes home visiting and doula supports and parent support groups like Jen has. And then we have a job training program, which includes our social enterprise, Bright Endeavors. And I'll plug Bright Endeavors soy candles for the holidays as fantastic gifts. So all 3 of those things, all help build on the strengths and skills and potential that a young mom already has, no matter what adverse experiences she may have had in her life. And that's core to our model, is that moms already have what they need to build economic mobility and family well-being and achieve the goals that they have or that they set for their families. That's really core to our model. And that foundation is how we got really clear and really consistent across all programs around that foundation and that strengths model. And that is how we started to build on our app idea. I should also say that all this work is really committed. It's really grounded in a commitment to racial equity. We are a white-led organization primarily supporting young women of color. And there are a lot of inequities in that, and we are working to address that. And one of the things that our app is going to do is change the power dynamics of our model and of our approach even further. And it's important that I say that, and I'll bring it up throughout in ways that we've been thinking about how our app can embed a diversity, equity, inclusion lens in the development and in the outcomes. So for today's discussion, Carrie asked me to talk about 3 core kind of pieces. One is how we determined that an app was a possible solution. Because we haven't really done any piloting yet, we don't know that it is the solution. We might find in our feasibility and acceptability testing in our next round of our piloting that it doesn't work. We don't think that's the case. We've done some validation of it, but if it doesn't work, it might not be the solution. We don't know yet. So we're approaching it with the spirit of inquiry. You'll see that come up throughout. And assuming it's the solution, how do we figure out what our minimum viable product features are right now at the beginning of the process? This might change over time as we learn more from participants and coaches as they co-design the product. And then third question is, what are our security privacy considerations at this point? I should also say, these questions are specific to New Moms app development process and don't represent the entirety of the panoply of ways that an organization can develop an app. What I've learned in 2 years of research is there are a variety of ways that you can develop an app or develop technology with a variety of different partnerships and funding structures. And we've decided on one pathway, and I'll share with you the decision-making process for that pathway, why it's a better fit for us. But that's just our sole experience, and there are a lot of different options out there. So I can share some of the questions that you can ask as you're exploring which pathway is right for you. So we started, I mean, our desire for an app started with a problem. And our problem was a good problem to have, which was back in 2018, we had really shifted our program approach. We'd taken about 2 years of shifting our program from a more case management style, hierarchical style of provision of services to young families, and shifted it toward a coaching model, which recentered on young moms, goals that they set for themselves and their families, and really shifted the power. And the organization had about 2 years of experience shifting towards a family-centered coaching approach, and done a lot of work on racial equity. In that, a lot of shift in our program strategies and supportive services, how we talk about it. And all of these really good shifts to coaching had also brought about new problems. And although we were committed to moving forward with coaching, it presented these 6 core issues. It took a lot of time. Coaching takes longer than case management, because case management, you can tell somebody how to solve the problem rather than work with them and partner with them as they find the solutions that they have to the problems that they have. It is a slower pace, right? We don't solve the problems immediately. It's a duration. It takes longer period of years, but also it's slower. I mentioned the power shift, and for participants and many of our coaches and many of the people in our administration, it took a long time to really recognize the power dynamic in case management. And that felt normal, and to make the change required a lot of time. It was a commitment, and we're still making that power shift where participants really do drive the agenda in our work and organization's agenda. Everything was paper-based, it still is. This has been a real challenge in COVID, is getting everyone equipped to use our paper-based coaching tools in a virtual environment. Our contact and communication, to Jen's point, it has been on the phone and in Zoom and in Remind and in email and in Facebook meetings, and it's all over the place. And our data collection, there's a lot of duplication. As all of you have experienced, there are so many systems that funders require you to enter data in. It's duplicative. And across our programs, it was duplicative because a mom in our housing and job training program would have 2 different coaches, and they're both putting in data into the system. So it's a lot of issues with data quality because of the multiple points of entry, but also data duplication, which was inefficient. So these were all the problems that we were having with coaching. And although we were committed to coaching, we wanted to resolve some of the problems. So we started to reframe the challenges as inquiries, right? How might we be more efficient? How might we improve our goal progression in our coaching approach? How can we continue to center on mom, reduce paperwork, improve our communication and collaboration, and decrease duplication and increase data quality? And I think, by looking at these as this with the spirit of inquiry, it's more generative than looking at the problems. And so in that generative period of about a year, 2018, we really started to think, okay, what can we do to address all these problems? And we brainstormed with coaches and participants on some of these individual pain points. Improved processes were helping, improved training was helping, more consistent language was helping, but they were all like kind of drop in the bucket solutions to our bigger problems. And so, we also wanted to say, like, from an equity perspective, how can we resolve some of these issues, right? What does it mean using a racial equity lens to be more efficient? How is that perpetuating some of the white cultural norms, right? So how can we reframe some of these inquiries with a racial equity lens? That's been central to this as well. So we determined through participant surveys and coach interviews and conversations with database experts and communications experts and texting, what could we do to mitigate these challenges all at once? And we said, what are the strengths that we already have, that moms already have? What do they already bring to the table? And they already brought to the table their cell phones. And they are all digital natives, right? We're serving and supporting and partnering with people under 24. So we might have a 40-year-old coach who maybe isn't as comfortable with technology, but our moms sure are. And they all were saying, I want to text my coach, I want to email my coach. They were already trying to do all of these things in technology, and our system wasn't built for that. So we started to think about what are the other ways that our participants and coaches are solving these problems with technology. Can we bring it all into one system? And so we partnered, we said, yes, we think that this is possible. How could we resolve these problems with technology? And we didn't really know it would be app-based at that time, but we partnered with a Silicon Valley venture coach, Promise Venture Studio. And over the course of a 4-month fellowship, we had coaching from our Promise Venture coach and our Harvard Center on the Developing Child coach on the goal progression side. And together they brought us through a discernment process that I'll take you through the steps on next. Let me pause because I think a chat came through and I want to make sure I'm not missing. Okay. So we first started by reframing our need. Yes, Jennifer?
Does anyone have any questions or any reflections based on sort of the challenges that they outlined that they wanted to address? Okay. Never mind.
Popcorn style it up too. If I'm talking, you want to interrupt. I have your videos up so I can see if you raise your literal hand or just even shout it out. We're a small enough group, it's not disruptive at all. So, so our first step was that our coaches introduced us to a framework, and I don't have a technology background. I've never heard so much technology jargon. So I will try to spare you or introduce some of the terminology to you. They introduced to us a reframing of what we identified as our challenges or our needs. And they said it's actually a little bit different. It's maybe a different perspective on a job to be done. And this is, I think, a pretty now standard framework for technology developers to use the jobs to be done reframing, which is really to understand the process that a consumer of a product or a system or a service goes through, right, whenever she aims to change her existing life situation. This visual of the skateboarder. They don't want the titanium hardware and the Swiss bearings and the polyurethane wheels and hollow tricks. They just want the skateboard because they want to skate. So they start with, I want to skate, and not, I want the carbon skateboard with the Swiss bearings and the titanium hardware. And sometimes we, as a program developer, designer, we start with, they want the Swiss bearings and the titanium hardware, as opposed to what they want to do with it, which is the job to be done, is to skate and to feel free and to feel like you're flying or whatever it is, right? So a job to be done is not a task or an activity, but it's really what you become as a result of that task or activity or that product. So we reframed it, right? We really spent a couple months understanding what our participants, our two users, participants and coaches, jobs to be done were. And we identified that participants' job to be done was to be a role model for their kids and a leader in their family. And coaches wanted to be effective coaches and have more time to do coaching because they wanted to be more effective. And also we kind of identified New Moms as this third customer, as an entity. And we, as a job to be done, wanted to be a leading program applying behavioral science and technology into program strategies to center on moms. So with that reframing of a job to be done, it reset our whole understanding of what the app could do. And that's where we started. Throughout this, we were doing product testing to understand, do the products commercially available out there really help our participants accomplish their job to be done? Does it help our coaches accomplish that job to be done? And I created a scoring rubric for each of these apps. We tested 7 pretty intensively. And I ranked their features based on the jobs to be done for our participants and for our coaches and for new moms, including a rubric of cost, of time frame used, of goal setting, communication with coaches, etc. It was like a super simple rubric that I set up in a Google spreadsheet, like, you know, on a scale of 1 to 4, how well does each of these apps accomplish this core element that we're looking for in order to help accomplish that jobs to be done. And, you know, we found that there was quite a bit of differences in what's commercially available. For some programs, you guys might decide that there's an app that actually already does what you need. And it might get you 90% of the way there, and that would be a huge win. Because app development, I learned, is super expensive and super time consuming. And by the time you develop it over the course of a year or 2, your needs or your jobs to be done might have changed, especially in this pandemic environment when so much is changing so quickly. So I really recommend that everybody goes through a commercial evaluation, like a quick rubric and testing of what's already out there. You might already have what you need, at least most of the way there. Anyway, so this helped us decide that what we wanted was actually like 75% out there through an app called Goal Mama. But it wasn't quite perfect because Goal Mama wasn't actually commercially available. We had to test it out with an NDA with the developer, but we weren't able to license it because it was owned by Nurse Family Partnership, a parent home visiting organization that had developed it over the course of 3 years for multiple millions of dollars. So we really liked Goal Mama, and so we started to talk with the developer of that app. And while we were talking to the developer of that app, we also were surveying and doing early prototyping with our internal user group. So like this was easy and low cost. I was doing this work at New Moms. So I was sending out surveys, like quick Google Form surveys. I was doing 15-minute interviews with coaches and asking them to ask their participants 3 questions, and then they would refer back to me. And then we developed a really early prototype in Google Forms. So like it cost us $0. I mean, it cost us some staff time, but that was beneficial because staff and participants really like to be listened to and active in the process. So it really did cost very little money and had very little time commitment other than just talking. It didn't involve massive shifts to the organization's infrastructure or operations or anything. And this helped us get really clear on what they did and didn't like about our coaching and our current technology. So we were doing that along the way. We shared this with the developer of Goal Mama as we were going so they could understand if their solutions could potentially meet what we were finding. And along the way with our Silicon Valley coaches, they also introduced us to the value proposition canvas. This is an open source tool from an organization called Strategizer that I've come to know is very, very common also in product development, in technology product development. You start on the right side with your customer profile. So for us, we had 2 user canvases. On the right, we had a participant, so a young mom user profile, And then we also had a coach user profile. So we had 2 canvases. We did this for both. This took multiple months as we were surveying our coaches and doing the jobs to be done. We were also doing this simultaneously. So you start with the pains, like what are the pain points of your engagement or with that user? So what are participants saying is painful? What is not working, right? What are the gains? How might we make it possible for a mom to improve her goal progression? How might we center so mom really feels that her goals are at the forefront of our coaching? How might we reduce the duplication in communication that a mom has with multiple coaches? What I talked about earlier. And the jobs to be done. What does she ultimately want to be and become from our coaching? And then you move from the right side to the value proposition. How can you relieve those pains with your product? How can you create gains? And what products and services might you use to do that? And with this this user canvas for coaches and participants, it really helped us get precise on the fact that, like, we don't need just an app, but we didn't need an app on the client side and a coach dashboard. So it can be in one app, but we do need 2 sides of this product. We need a coach dashboard and we need a participant facing interface to create all these gains for our 2 users. And from there, we distilled a minimum viable product features list. This will only work if we have the coach dashboard and the participant app. And here are the core 6 features it has to have. It will not work if it doesn't have all of these things up front. Over time, we can add, we can get more of what we want, we can learn from our first initial minimum viable product. But if we don't have these early wins in our first product, our participants won't use it and our coaches won't use it, and we will have invested all this time and money in something that people don't like. And so you have to have the early wins of appointment scheduling, goal setting and tracking, coach participant communication as a hub. So to Jen's point, this is going to be the place where they do it. They don't use Remind and texting and Googles and Facebook. It's all through this app and this interface where a participant can prioritize the topics that she wants to engage in her coaching, where we share info and content, and it has to integrate with our database, we use ETO. If it doesn't integrate with ETO, it creates more pains than gains, and our coaches won't use it. So it doesn't matter if it's effective for the participant. If our coaches don't use it, we fall flat in the water. So this is what is called an MVP, or minimum viable product features list. And from this list, we worked with AOGO to determine that yes, they can use their life plan platform and build on it and tailor it to incorporate all 6 of these minimum viable product features. And we have now recently entered into a partnership with AOGO, building on the platform that they already had. And we will go through a process in Q1 and Q2 of 2021 where they co-design with our coaches and our participants, our 2 user groups, to get more precise on the game creators and the user interface on the coach dashboard and the client app, both sides of that, as well as talking with our ETO database provider about how to do the integration. So that's going to take about 6 months, and we will it will launch, it's planned, we will plan to pilot in Q2 and then launch in Q3 across all programs in New Moms. This app and dashboard will also become commercially available. So it won't be tailored only to New Moms. The platform will be available for any organization that wants to tailor it themselves. So it's a huge cost savings to organizations because the platform is already developed. There'll be a base user license fee and then a per user fee on top of that. And just like we are benefiting from AOGO's 3 years of work with Nurse Family Partnership, other organizations will benefit from AYOGO's work with new moms. And there'll be a lot of developmental cost savings and the time savings where AYOGO already knows what populations like young families are already engaging with in their features. So it will be available, we think, within a year for other organizations to also license. Okay, before I go on to privacy and security considerations, are there any questions that I can answer or clarify? Okay. Privacy and security wasn't really at the forefront of our needs finding and discernment and discovery process, primarily because we never expected to collect personally identifiable information, or PII, with our app. But we do know that the database integration with our data system will open up potential security and privacy considerations. And so in our research with other organizations who'd done app projects or technology, we had heard from them that this was a huge issue because they were not working with one app designer and developer. They were kind of piecemealing it. So they were taking a commercially available app and using a pro bono team like we all like to do, and taking some advice from another mentor who works in the business, and they were cobbling this all together, and it was creating some issues for privacy security considerations for integration, and they weren't really happy with the outcomes. And so a lot of organizations we talked to built apps in this piecemeal approach, and then they found out that they couldn't really use it in the way because it wasn't properly secure, or it was not meeting the needs at that time of their two user groups. And we decided to forego that, to pay a little bit more, and to forego that piecemeal pro bono approach, and to go with AYOGO, in part because they have worked with big pharma, they've worked with medical companies, and they are a behavioral app developer that already has all of the certifications and security expertise in-house, not just in development, but in ongoing maintenance of the app. So all I can tell you is what I've really copied and pasted in our letter of intent and agreement with AYOGO is what they have for their privacy and security standards. HIPAA compliant, GDPR compliant. AYOGO is an ISO 27001 compliant organization with a QMS policy. If you know what those mean, great, then you are well in advance, well further in the privacy and security conversation than I am. As we go forward, AYOGO, New Moms, and our database ETO will have much more in-depth conversations about privacy and security, but we are confident in AYOGO's commitment to it based on all of their work with Nurse Family Partnership in the past and all of their work in the medical and behavioral health space. So that's the other benefit and cost savings, is we are confident in the security that they bring to development and ongoing maintenance. But I don't know a ton more about it than that. So it's just something to be aware of and consider when you're making your selection for whatever commercial partner you're using or pro bono partner, that your privacy and security are top of mind.
Dana, I have a question for, this is Carrie. I have a question for you about your integration with ETO. I think that this will be relevant to our other technology group as well. What does that look like for the app and ETO? Do you have a bridge created where data just auto flows into that other database, or is it going to be like a download upload situation, or what does that look like? Do you know?
Yeah, we went into it thinking it was going to be a download upload situation. And our senior director of performance management, who manages all of our data in ETO, has talked with AYOGO's developer, and also now has connected AYOGO's software team and engineers with ETO's engineers. because AOGO, in order for AOGO to make money on this and to make this viable for them, it needs to be at scale. Like New Moms, we serve 400 families a year. We're not big enough to float the cost of Life Plan entirely. And so AOGO understands that in order to make Life Plan work at a cost point that New Moms and other similar organizations can afford, is they need to scale it. And that means it has to be able to integrate with ETO or other common databases like Salesforce really easily. And so they are working directly with ETO. And if another organization needed them to, you know, connect with Apricot or connect with Salesforce, they would do that as well as part of the base license fee. At first, we thought we were going to be a download upload situation. Now AOGO is exploring whether or not they can do it a little more seamlessly, but we haven't gotten to that part yet. So
Yeah. And I know it sometimes can be an extra cost on the ETO side. So if they have to build out the infrastructure to make that connection with AOGO, that could be an extra cost. So I was just curious about that too. If you know, well, I guess you're probably not even that far into the process.
yeah. Well, I will say that like ETO, from my experience in doing a ton of research with other organizations to see if there's other market interest or other organizations that wanted to partner with us in AOGO and the development of this, as we were just exploring it over the summer, there were a lot of organizations that have been unhappy with their database, ETO or Salesforce. It doesn't seem like there's a one size fit all, and nobody I've talked to is completely confident and happy with their database.
Yeah.
That it's a value add to ETO or to Apricot or to Salesforce to say we have this additional supportive technology that can reduce your data duplication, that can reduce your data quality issues. So it is a value add for ETO or for Salesforce to be working with AOGO. At least that's how we're pitching it to them, to make it more appealing to them. I mean, they've been really interested. So
yeah.
They recognize the pain point on their end for their users, and that one value proposition of this type of partnership is an expansion of their potential market too.
Yeah.
And I've been out of the game a while, so I had to ask Carrie on the chat. I assume everyone knows that ETO is just your database.
That's what we're using as well, so I am very familiar.
Oh, hey, synergy. Are there questions for Dana? Or curiosities or things that you're wondering or anything like that?
Nope,
No.
it's been very, very thorough and very, very straightforward, very easy to follow. So thank you.
You're welcome. It has not felt that way the past 2 years. So I'm glad that I can just at least try and distill it. I think it's not so linear as I made it out to be in the presentation, where it was like, first we did this, and then we did this, and then that stopped and we moved to the next. Like surveying your users, prototyping, conducting research happens throughout. I'm still doing that. We will do that ongoing in order to improve the app over time too. So, you know, I think that's one of our learnings. It's not like a step-by-step, you know, linear process. There's a lot of cyclical and iterative work with this too. But it does not all have to be super intensive and scary, because the surveying and prototyping and conducting research, like, it did not cost us much anything. I did buy a couple of subscriptions to those commercial apps to test them out for a few months. But other than that, there was not a huge cost at that time. Now is when we get to the big costs around with AOGO. And I can give you a sense of what it is going to look like, although we're still negotiating it for base licensing. It's going to be tens of thousands a year for the base license fee, and then a per user cost that'll probably be bucketed in 25. So like 25 participants and coaches in buckets of 25, 1 to 25, 25 to 50, so that we can scale a little bit without incurring massive additional costs along the way. And the hope is that as AYOGO contracts with more peer organizations and more funders are interested in this, as it scales, then the cost per user, per license fee will go down, of course. So, but we're at the very most expensive part of the process, and AYOGO is doing a ton of work up front without any money coming in from organizations or funders yet, because they're really committed to the vision of what this can do for organizations across the country. So they already have 3 other organizations. One is national, a nationally scattered site company or organization that coaches young families too. And so they are moving forward with potentially signing on 3 additional partners right now. So.
Can I ask, do you seek funding to help you with that from funders, or do you have for-profit type services?
We do not have for-profit type services. We are starting to make the long pivot towards Medicaid billing. But no, we have, a very typical mix of public funding from city, state, and federal sources, and a lot of private foundation dollars. The private foundation dollars are really what's going to start with this, because it's a higher risk, untested strategy, and that's where our foundation partners generally come in. And then once it's proven, we can go to some of our more public and stodgy funding partners. But we have pitched this to a couple of key technology funders that we have relationships with, to no avail yet, but we are about to commit upfront to a little bit of skin in the game, and then do some collaborative fundraising with AYOGO and our technology partner from Silicon Valley. We're creating a pitch deck that'll be ready in a couple of weeks, and then we'll start to pound the pavement in Silicon Valley and with other partners that we have who have indicated an interest in technology funding, especially with an opportunity right now with COVID. Organizations and funders are really seeing that virtual coaching isn't just going to go away once we can go back to in-person, and there's going to need to be additional capacity funding for technology. So we think that this actually is going to fit right in with a lot of foundations pivots towards technology funding and towards supplemental coaching technology. It's a little bit untested, but we've started to hear from some of our funding partners that they'd be interested in seeing the pitch deck when it's ready. We also think collaborative funding with these other potential organizations, like the 3 that I mentioned that are interested in this with AYOGO, that we potentially have similar national funding partners that we could go in on a pitch together. So I'm talking right now with that other national partner. We have some shared funders, how we might pitch it together. So we're open to conversations. It's a fluid and open network. So Jen and Clint, if your organizations are curious or want to learn more about LifePlan, about the process, about what funding conversations are looking like, and that pitch deck is looking like, we're happy to share it. We're not sharing it like publicly to the world. We're not putting the pitch deck out there unless we have relationships, but we're in this network. So I'm happy to share as we develop it further.
Any other questions for Dana right now? Any sense of what feels like next steps for your organizations and or how the network could be helpful with that?
Is this just to the general group then?
Yes.
I don't know, I might need a minute.
Threw a lot at you.
Is acceptable. I guess my question is, you know, do you feel like you're in the information gathering phase? Do you feel like you want any thought partnership around information gathering or having this conversation more broadly in your organization? Is there any immediate next steps that you're thinking you might take? Or is that something that you're not ready to answer right now?
Yeah, I think it'd be more informational just because we have so many things kind of, or so many plates spinning at the moment right now. So yeah, I don't think we'd be ready for any like next step, like, oh, let's get Aogo on the phone.
Just say ditto on that.
Yeah.
And this was this for us needed to have buy-in of senior leadership. Like our CEO was like, this app is gonna be a huge and important project for us. She was like at the very forefront of this. So that has helped this move forward because she's said like, I can dedicate some of my capacity in my role to this 2-year-long kind of nebulous process that doesn't have any income right now or things like this. And so I do think that's a piece that I didn't mention. It can't just be coming right now from your coaches or your participants, the need, like your senior leadership does need to have some buy-in because it's a process that has real expenses on the other side, like when you start developing, and the human resource expense right now. So.
But it does sound like New Moms has done a significant amount of legwork that other organizations may be able to piggyback on. You know,
I think so. And Promise Venture Studio was our coaching partner, and we were the inaugural we were part of the inaugural cohort of their fellowship. And I think we and they both realized we were really too early stage. Once we got in it, like we were really early stage in the process of technology. I think in their second round, they've probably selected organizations that were a little further in the process, like the next step. But they have developed a ton of resources for organizations in the discernment phase like us as a result, I think. So I would encourage you to check out Promise Venture Studio's webinars and resources and connections and their early venture index for tons of partners who've done a lot of legwork too. So that's a great resource that I continue to rely on.
and I think I would encourage you to think about, is it worth spending a few hours mapping out what the needs and outcomes might be, or what the challenges and pain points might be in your organization? Because as Dana pointed out, this might be a unique time for people to fund this sort of innovation in a way that they wouldn't have been open to if it weren't for a pandemic. And I guess we'll find out what Dana finds out here shortly and whether I'm right or not. But is that something that you would be interested in? Or does that feel premature?
Premature.
That's fair. That's fair. So Jen, is there anything that you feel like you would want to see happen next? Or do you feel like, okay, I have the information I need and there's really like, there's not the bandwidth to ask any more questions about an app right now?
Yeah, I think just, you know, I feel like it's pie in the sky right now. I think just learning about the process that, you know, New Moms has gone through and seeing where it would go. I mean, we've been working over the past couple of years on just getting a new database in place, and we're still not there with that. So, I mean, we're really far from where they are. So, but I like to learn about it because if they're successful, maybe someday, you know.
Well, and I think the amazing bonus is you probably don't have to go through the process that they went through. Parts of it, yes, in terms of integrating, identifying how it would fit in your organization, but like they definitely did the legwork on the technology side, and you might not have to go through all the things they went through, which doesn't necessarily make it accessible for you right now, but.
And Jen, I can also share that New Moms, we went through a massive database shift. We'd been using ETO, but we did a ton of research on other systems and then decided ETO was the best we could get at that time, and invested a lot more money and effort into upgrading ETO, and went through, it was about a 1.5 year long process, and we upgraded our ETO and did a ton of training in 2017. And then started to explore app about a year after that. Just to give you a sense of our process around database to the next step of technology strategy in our organization.
Honestly, that kind of feels like where we're at, just because we have a little bit of fatigue because we were kind of emotionally invested, or we had been investing a lot of time and energy into possibly switching over to this other database, which it just turned out it just wasn't going to work for us. So we kind of, we've been using ETO for several years, but we kind of let it stagnate, so to speak, for the past year because we thought we were going to be moving off on this new system. So I almost feel like we're kind of getting back to that stage where we're, it's like, we're not going to move. It seems like ETO, like, it has its flaws, but it seems like this is kind of the best fit for us right now, and we're kind of going to go back to the table and see, like, okay, how can we revamp the touch points? How can we revamp the programs and just make it work better for us? So I kind of feel like we're almost like an app, like, an application that the families can use on their smartphone would be fantastic. But I almost feel like, yeah, we're kind of back to that stage because we have a little bit of fatigue from this other, unsuccessful venture.
So Clint, you want to talk or have your ETO administrator talk with our senior director of performance management who navigated that whole process of upgrading our touch points and training staff, and figuring all that out. That's the other, I can make that connection for you and introduce you to that person.
I am our ETO guy, so
okay.
I know the struggles.
Her name's Ian. So if you do at some point want to talk with her about that whole process or specific pieces of it, let me know.
No, that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing really from Clint and Jen is that it doesn't necessarily make sense to sort of continue pursuing, for at least your two organizations, like this app process as like a regular subgroup for the network, because it's not necessarily something you're ready to move forward with, at this time. Is that accurate, or is it something you would want to continue to meet and talk about?
That's accurate for me.
Okay. Yeah, because no need to bark up the wrong tree in a manner of speaking. Okay. And we do, just Clint, for your information, and I think Jen, this, we are running a consultation group also that's just focused on database transition and upgrade and increase utilization. So trying to identify ways in which the network can support organizations who are at different stages, but moving through those processes. So if that's of interest to you, Carrie can hook you up with that group as well.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds right up our alley.
And also, like, if this group sort of dissolves for now, if there's ever a time when you're like, it's kind of back on the table, please just let us know that, and we're happy to like restart.
And I think, Dana, if it's okay with you, definitely like, we'll want to continue to hear how your process is going. And I think people will want to continue to know what your successes are and what you find out there when you go fundraising. And we definitely need to have a little party for you in Q3 of next year when you launch the product.
We will be shouting that from the rooftops. You'll be able to not hear that the app has launched, and I'll definitely be sure to share as we have some wins along the way. Thank you for giving me the chance to share what we've experienced and learned.
Well, thank you for your time. And I'm sure at some point in the future there will be synergy, but I'm glad that we had an opportunity to let everyone know about it in a lot more detail today. I'm going to close this out unless there are any last minute needs or questions or thoughts. Okay. But I mean, of course, Jen knows this, but Clint, like, we invite you to reach out to the network for anything that you think might be helpful. And if we don't know, we can find someone who does. That's at least our goal here. So, these are really hard questions, and there's no reason for each organization to struggle through them individually. If there's stuff that you can either learn from one another, or if there's stuff that we can learn together by bringing in an expert or a professional. So that's the value that we're looking to add relative to the technology piece, for sure, but also in general. And Dana, do you want to send me or Carrie the contact information for your director of performance management, and I'll connect her with Clint? Cool. Clint, I'm going to give you my email because I don't think I have yours. I'll just drop it in the chat. Thank you all for your time today. I really appreciate it. I feel like we learned a lot.
Thank you. And congratulations, Dana. What you've done is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, indeed.
I appreciate that.
Just thinking about all of your work stresses me out.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I mean, it's been a whole learning experience, and I feel really grateful for that. So.
All right, well,
Thanks.
thank you all very much.
Yeah, thanks
Have a
again,
nice day.
everybody.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Have
Thank
a
you.
great day.
Bye.
You all do the same.